Hi, I'm Bill from Phoenix Golf, and today we're going to talk about three very key things you need to do in your golf swing before you even take the club back. As I read today, Jack Nicklaus used to say 80+% of your golf swing is done before you even swing the club. And I really do agree with that because a proper setup and a pre-shot routine can really help improve your game. So we're going to talk about three things today. They're pretty easy to remember because if you watch golf, you know what the PGA is. So it's posture, grip, and alignment. Before we get started too, I just want to say if you like my videos, I ask you to please like and subscribe as I try to grow the channel. I'd really appreciate it. So let's get right into it. The first thing here is the P for posture. So when I started golfing, unfortunately, had a very, they always told me, get into an athletic pose. And so, after playing football and other sports, I'd get, down like this and I'd be really squatty. It took me a long time to realize that what your body does when you're squatted down, as you take the club back, the opposite reaction to that is to stand up. And so what you want to do is make sure that you're standing up tall enough so the opposite reaction is to go down. So let's kind of get into that a little bit. So when we take our pose, some of the easiest ways to get into it is you always want to feel like you're standing a little taller, like I mentioned, so that way you're the opposite reaction. If you're tall, your body's going to naturally want to go down to get the ball, which you then will compress the golf ball, which is what we want. So a couple of easy things you can do here are you don't want to get too wide in your stance. So I always try to do shoulder width. So if I drew lines down here, you could see that I'm pretty much shoulder width. If my feet are outside of my shoulders, this is too wide for most people. And what it does is it really restricts your hip movement. And that's what we really want. And it's harder to get a solid base and you kind of can sway all over the place. So I always kind of err on the side of narrow. Because I tend to be more balanced. Everybody's a little different, as we know. So I tend to make it a narrower stance. The other thing I do is I kind of flare both feet out. Again, that helps with hip turn and mobility. Now, depending on the amount of flare to each foot, it's kind of a preference. As I've videotaped my swing longer and gotten more into tune with what I do personally, I actually like to flare out this right foot even more than I would say most people like. And the reason I do it is because on the downswing, it allows this hip to just be a fraction of a second slower and gives me room right here to get into the slot. So that way I can get these arms first and then have the hip. If I don't, I tend to get this hip going first and you get this where I get blocked out. So if you have a feeling of you're having trouble getting to your lead side, maybe less flare on this foot, more flare on this foot, will promote that hip to go back. So you can do that. So as far as, a narrower stance, feet flare is up to you. It's usually 10 degrees. Most people will say on average 10 to 15 degrees of toes pointed out. And then what I like to do too is kind of sit in a little bit. And you can feel it if you rock your toes up, how you go back into your heels. I like to have a feeling of like more flat-footed, almost as if like somebody laid down some wet cement and said, we want your feet print in here. You wouldn't be like rocking all over the place. You'd kind of just stand like flat-footed a little bit. And I like that because it allows you to keep the weight on the inside of your feet. Because if you're too far on your toes, your balance is going to be terrible for one, but it's going to be really hard to return. And if your feet are too far back, that's going to be really hard to swing too. So just kind of like you can rock back to kind of find that happy medium. But eventually you'll find, what feels good for you. So far we've got your stance, feet placement, shoulder width for most irons, a little bit more for maybe a 4-iron or 3-iron, something like that. And then, we're flat-footed. So kind of the next big portion of that is how do we get into our stance? So without getting too, squatted down or too bent over. So what I was always taught to do is take the club and push it way out in front of you. Stand with your knees, not locked, but, relatively straight with no bend. And let the club kind of fall down to the ground till it hits and it's square. And then just a little bit of knee bend. That's it. You don't want to get too low, just a little bit. And then of course, I've shown this in other videos, a quick tip. If you're too close to the club, an easy fix or an easy check is to take your right palm, kind of just wave it through. And then you have enough room for your body to get through. Now, if it's too close, there are really, really excellent world-class players, Jon Rahm, one of them, who have the club very close to them. It's a personal preference. I got no problem with that. Everybody plays the game a little differently, but for most people, you need a little bit more space. So just let the arms kind of fall in front of you. Get your arms out in front of your chest. Let it fall, and then a little bit of knee bend. So that kind of covers posture. So again, I build that into my routine when I go to the course. So I'm trying to keep all my variables as consistent as possible so I can limit my bad shots. So the next thing we got to worry about is our grip. Now, grip, again, personal preference. I've seen a variety of grips change over the 20 plus years I've been playing golf. People tend to, it used to be like if you had a really, really strong grip, and you can see here on the club, I've written some red marker there. This would be a very, very strong grip because this V would be pointed way to my hip, past my shoulders and ears. So let me move back on camera here a little bit. And then they would say, well, you got to match your right hand. So then people would go like really under here. So it's almost like in the palm of your hand, your thumb's off to the side. That is an extremely strong grip. And when you have a strong grip, you're going to pull it to the left or hit it to the left. Now, the opposite of that is very weak grip, where like on my glove right now, I can't even see any of the red markings. And so then people would go with their trail hand over the middle here. So this would be an extremely weak grip. And you can see the face is just open by me holding it. And as I would come through, it would be really hard to square that face. That face is open 30 degrees right now. So what I do is I mark up a training glove. So when I go to the range, I pull out my range glove that's got markings on it. And what I do is I highlight 2 knuckles, or 3, depends on you. And then I put a square of a bright color, red, green, black, something like that. Well, I guess black's not really a bright color, but you get the drift. And then most gloves even have kind of this marking here where there's like a stripe or something like that. I use this just a red marker here with kind of an arrow and a little V. So that way, I put the club down so it's nice and square, it's just comfortable, and then I take my lead hand and I get that V pointed either like my ear, trail side ear, or right shoulder. So now I can see like a couple of knuckles there, so I know like 2 knuckles is good for me. Now the trail hand, like I said, you want to try to match up, but you don't have to. If you feel like, hey, I just want a really strong grip on the left hand and a really weak on the right, it's not ideal, but you can do it. It's golf. You can do however you want. But I'm going to go through and talk about most people, or the average person, or what they expect you to do, pros do. So again, 2 knuckles, this line pointed at my right shoulder. I take my right hand. I want my elbow, the crease of my elbow, to point it out, almost like I'm giving blood right here. I don't want my arm like this because it's not going to bend very well on the trail backswing. So if you turn your arm like you're giving blood or doing like a curl here, you can take the club. That's kind of what you want. So I get this set, and then I just turn my wrist. I don't turn my arm, turn my wrist, and I get this V here, this crease. I want that pointed towards my right shoulder as well. So I've got this V, and now I've got that V. Now, again, you can go with an overlapping grip, how I have. You can do an interlocking grip, or you can do a baseball grip. It's really preferential. I like the overlap because it helps me keep my hands connected, but I never was really a fan of the interlock. It kind of just never felt comfortable to me, and you know what? That's okay. So you can go a 2-finger overlap or a 1-finger overlap, and again, personal preference. Try it on the range, see what feels comfortable. But that kind of covers, the main things of grip is just checking those V's. The V on the left hand, the V on the right hand. I always check first, point it to my shoulder, bring this one in, point it to my shoulder. Now, if I'm going to try to hit a cut or a fade, for me personally, I'll just roll this hand over because it just helps me get this shoulder, everything kind of in front like you would if you were going to do, like this would be the ideal shoulder position if you're going to hit a fade or a cut, at least for me. If you're going to hit a draw, you want that shoulder drop back a little bit. Sometimes I'll even just pull back to make sure I'm coming from the inside to out. So we've got our posture, we've got our grip, now comes alignment. So in some of my past videos, I've talked about the importance of alignment, how you can get down on yourself if you're thinking you're hitting bad shots, but really you're hitting good shots, you're just aligned improperly. And I've done that before when I was taking lessons. I'd be like, I don't know, I'm hitting everything to the right. And he'd line me up and be like, no, you're hitting everything right where you're supposed to be. It just feels wrong because you're not aligned correctly. So when you're on your home simulator, if you're at like an X Golf, if you're on the range, alignment's really important. So a couple of alignment sticks or old golf club shafts or old golf clubs or whatever you want to do. So when I go to the range, the first thing you want to do is get alignment stick across your foot line. Now, for me, I point it at the target or a little bit left of the target. And then I take one. Now you can move it back here if you want, behind you or in front of you. But it helps me because I know the club face is pointing towards just this yellow line here, my alignment stick. So I know as I go down the line, I want to like focus on if I'm skipping a stone right down that line. So I know I'm parallel to the ball, I'm parallel to my target. Now, sometimes I'll take a club, and I don't know if you can see it here, but I lay it down kind of behind and to the right of me. So that way, for me, what I do is I line up with the alignment stick here. Let me get my stance, my grip all set. Now I focus on getting the butt end of the club following the alignment stick in front of my feet on the way back. And on the way down, I want to match up this alignment stick on the ground at like a 45-degree angle. I want to lock that in so I can see, like now I know I'm coming from the inside, and then I go through and turn. Now that's just really helpful for me because I know it's going to help before a round, especially. You want to get that alignment down. You want to get your kind of your swing path in the right section. So hands down this one. As I go down, I can see the club head or the club shaft matching up the one on the ground at a 45-degree angle, and I swing on through. So you've got your posture, your grip, and alignment now. So those are three of the most important things you can do to help your game. I know they're not the most exciting because you want to get out there, you want to hit golf balls, but if you practice those three things when you're on the range. Now, of course, if you're on the course, don't get too into what you're doing with your grip and stuff, but you should be able to easily tell, is it pointed towards my shoulder? Okay, I'm good. Lock in. You should be able to tell if you're too squatted or too tall. So maybe just like, you don't want to stand there for 10 minutes, but just get a nice little knee flex, get that feeling down before you, hit the ball, but don't overthink it. I will say I shared this in a couple other videos. I'll share it here again. When you're on the course, one of the easiest alignment tricks I do that I love, that really helps me lock in, is I'll look at my target. So let's say it's the flag. Then I try to look down my line to an intermediary target somewhere 10 feet in front of me. A leaf, a rock, a pebble, a divot, something where I can kind of take this trail arm and line it up. So I line it up like this, and then I take my left arm and bring it out straight as well, parallel. But then I take it out like 15 degrees. Put my right arm down. This reminds me I want to start walking towards this way to set up with my trail leg. I start walking like this into my ball position, and I line up the club face with my body open to the target. So I get this lined up. I know I'm good now. Now I take my stance. So that's a quick drill you can do on the course to make sure you're aligned. And you can also take the club and just kind of hold it against your hip for a quick check, or even just hold it against your shoulder, and you can see like the butt end of the club should be pointed to your target, just like your trail shoulder. So that's something you can do on the course, and I'm really a huge fan of doing stuff like that on the course where you're not taking extra time really to do it. I mean, everybody has like their pre-shot routine, and for me, hitting a ball where I'm intending to hit it will save me time from having to go look in the trees or the weeds or whatever. So I think it's really time well spent. So again, just remember the PGA, posture, grip, alignment when you're on the range or on the course, and work on your game that way because, like I said, 80+% of your golf swing starts before you even do anything with the club. So again, if you like these videos, if you like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your support.